And we are back after almost 3 months. The Premier League returns to our screens this evening, which means that we are bringing back the most popular series on this channel, the Premier League Prediction Series. If that's not worth a like, I don't know what is. And as always, make sure you are subscribed to the channel. We do these predictions every single week in the Premier League. And you know what? Given that it is the first week of the season, let's just get straight into it because we've got 10 matches to discuss and a lot of variables to consider. And we're kicking off straight away with tonight's game. It is Burnley against the reigning, defending, treble-winning champions Manchester City. The champions of the Championship taking on the champions of the Premier League in the first Friday night football of the season. And I don't think this is as straightforward as people are making it out to be. I have to say that off the bat. I'm very intrigued to see who plays in goal for Burnley because, as we know, if they do go for James Trafford in goal, then Manchester City aren't going to score because no one can score against James Trafford. It's basically completely impossible. But all of the suggestions that I've seen have suggested that it's going to be Muric that keeps his place after his brilliant season for them in the Championship. So if it is going to be him in goal, then Manchester City are going to win. I'm going to go for 2-0 to Manchester City. Like I say, I don't think this is going to be a very easy game. I definitely see Burnley causing City some problems. It's going to be a different style of play that Manchester City are not used to seeing. I'm sure Pep Guardiola's done his homework and Vincent Kompany is going to be more than prepared to stop his old club from getting off to the perfect start. But I'm a little bit concerned for Burnley defensively. They don't look like they've got the best defence, and I think Manchester City will definitely be able to capitalise on that. And I think it's going to be a little bit of a shell shock for some of those Burnley players that weren't in the Premier League a couple of seasons ago. And yeah, I think in the end Manchester City will get the job done, but this is definitely a potential for Manchester City to slip up on the first day of the season. Moving on to Saturday, we start with Arsenal against Nottingham Forest, the team that finished second, against the team that actually officially ended Arsenal's chances of winning the Premier League last season with that 1-0 win a couple of games before the end of the season. So Arsenal will definitely be out for blood. Forest will just be looking to get a steady start, but I think this is going to be a real tough task for Nottingham Forest's first game of the season. And to be quite honest with you, I don't think Arsenal could have asked for much of a better start than Nottingham Forest. I think we all expect Arsenal to win this one. It's just going to be a case of how many. I'm going to go for 3-0. It could definitely go a little bit tighter than that, but it would be a genuine shock to me if Arsenal don't win this opening fixture of the season. Moving on to Bournemouth against West Ham. Two sides who looked like they were going to be in the relegation fight all the way until the end of the season, but then both had really good runs just before it got to absolute crunch time, which meant that they were both actually safe before it got very, very serious towards the end. Both will be looking to make better starts to their campaigns this time around, but I am actually favouring West Ham for this one. I'm going to go for 2-1 to them. I really do think West Ham are going to do better this season. If you missed my table predictions that I did a couple of days ago, go and watch that. I don't know. I just think West Ham are going to do well this season. All this talk about how they're going to replace Rice and what they're going to do without such an influential player. I think they've replaced him very well in Alvarez, and it looks like they're making other good signings with James Ward-Prowse potentially coming in today and could be available to play tomorrow. I just think they'll do all right. I really do. And I don't think Bournemouth have done quite enough in the transfer window, albeit the signing of Alex Scott I think is a good one for them. I just don't think they're going to have enough to beat West Ham or get a result against West Ham on the opening day. On to the second of the promoted clubs, and my other sort of second club, as it were, Luton Town, as we see Dave with his Luton hat and the Luton flag behind him. I don't think Luton could have asked for a much harder task in their opening fixture than Brighton and Hove Albion. Now, granted, in the last few hours, it appears that Moises Caicedo has now officially left, or to the very least, they've agreed to sell him to Liverpool, so that at least they now know that his future is going to be away from the club. I don't think he would have played against Luton anyway. I think Brighton have got more than capable of covering for the losses of Caicedo and McAllister, but it all really depends on how Luton approach it. Again, they had the second best defensive record. Yes, they had the second best defensive record in the Championship, but the best defensive record away from home in the Championship last season. It's just Brighton are such a free-flowing team that I don't think, even with my bias hat on, I don't think I can sit here and say Luton are going to get a result against Brighton. I'm going to go for 2-0. I think it's going to be a tough game. I think it's going to be a very physical game because Luton like to make things very physical, and it might be something that Brighton aren't really expecting. You have to look at, it's probably wrong to draw comparisons with the women's game and the men's game, but you look at how England performed against Nigeria when everyone thought a free-flowing England would completely obliterate Nigeria, but it turned out that with that physical power, it was something that they'd not seen before. And I think Luton will provide a test that no team in the Premier League has seen in a very, very long time. And it'll be very interesting to see how Brighton do. But on paper, Brighton really should be taking this one. So I will go for 2-0 to them. Next up, we have Everton taking on Fulham, a side that had to win on the final day of the season to secure survival against a side that almost mathematically could have got into Europe on the final day of the season if it wasn't for a couple of other things going against them. Of course, all the talk around this game is, of course, the future of Alexander Mitrovic. Is he going to be available? Is he going to play? Marco Silva certainly thinks he's going to play, which certainly throws a spanner into the works in terms of how I was going to predict this game. I was going to go for a comfortable Everton win, but with Mitrovic potentially back in the mix, I think things become a lot harder for Everton. However, again, if you watch my table prediction video, I think Everton are going to have a good season this season, and I think that they are going to get a win over Fulham in the opening game of the season, and I'm going to go for 3-1 to Everton. I just think they've got enough attacking power going forward this season to cause some more problems. It does look like Demarai Gray could be going from Everton to Fulham. Very interested to see if he plays for Everton. And I think you'll probably find that after the game, negotiations will continue with Demarai Gray moving to Fulham, probably after the match. Next up, the final promoted team in Sheffield United as they take on Crystal Palace back under the permanent managership of Roy Hodgson. Tough one to call, kind of like what I was saying about Luton. Sheffield United are going to be looking to be very defensive, very physical, coming up against the Crystal Palace side that themselves are obviously very well structured in defence and have these free-flowing players going forward. Now, with Wilfried Zaha missing, as in he's moved on to Galatasaray, and Michael Olise still out injured, a lot of pressure is going to be applied on Ebere Eze to do pretty much all the damage in these first few fixtures. And I think there is going to be one upset. I say upset, Sheffield United are the home team. I think there is going to be one shock from one of the promoted sides in the opening round of fixtures, and I think this is the most likely one to occur. I'm not going to give Sheffield United the win. I really don't think they've done anywhere near enough in the transfer window to even win a game at home to Crystal Palace in the opening weekend of the season. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. It definitely wouldn't surprise me to see Crystal Palace still get the win, but it also wouldn't surprise me to see Sheffield United get the win as well, hence why I've just gone for the 1-1 draw down the middle. And I was very, very, very close to doing the traditional Ryan picks 2-2 for Crystal Palace result, but I didn't. I went for a 1-1 draw. On to two sides that will be competing, in my opinion, for Europe. What stage of Europe we will see, but both sides that are already in Europe for this season, in Newcastle and Aston Villa. They will play the evening game on Saturday this weekend. And I think this could be a really, really good game. Two sides that have both signed fantastically well in the summer transfer window once again. I think both sides are going to be all out going for it as well. I think it's going to be a very end-to-end game. It's just going to be a case of who gets the result in the end. I'm going to favour the home side purely because it's a bit of a bottle, in my opinion. I'm going to go 2-1 to Newcastle. I think if it was at Villa Park, I'd have gone 2-1 to Villa. It's going to be a really, really tight game. Very interested to see how this one goes. But I think right now, I'm just going to edge it in Newcastle's favour. On to Sunday, we start off with Brentford up against Spurs. Of course, the massive news coming out this morning that Harry Kane is at Heathrow Airport, getting on a plane, and he is off to Munich for a medical. He is leaving Spurs at long last. And where does that leave Spurs? Well, in my opinion, in not too much of a bad position. I think they've got a lot of quality in attack without Harry Kane. I also think that if Harry Kane stayed, it would have really stifled James Maddison. I think Maddison will pick up the reins in terms of playing those creative balls from midfield where Harry Kane was dropping in, and now it can afford them to play either Richarlison or Velis or Son or whoever they want up front with a little bit more freedom in the knowledge that James Maddison will be sitting behind them anyway. So I don't think the loss of Kane is going to affect Spurs too much. I know there are some people that think the loss of Kane will mean that Spurs will now plummet into a relegation fight, but I don't really see it. Also, in terms of Brentford, they look set to lose David Raya to Arsenal. And from what I've seen of pre-season, as much as I rate Flecken as a goalkeeper, his pre-season has been incredibly, incredibly dodgy. So I think Spurs are going to take this one relatively comfortably. I don't back Spurs defensively, but I still think they've got so much attacking talent going forward with or without Harry Kane. And I think it'll be enough to see off Brentford in the opening weekend of the season. The main event of the weekend sees new manager Mauricio Pochettino take his brand new Chelsea side up against Liverpool, where the word of the day will be Caicedo, because as I said already, 111 million for Moises Caicedo to Liverpool, not to Chelsea, agreed this morning. Will Caicedo play on Sunday? It would be a massive statement from Liverpool if he did. It's already a massive statement for them to take a player away from Chelsea, who historically are the team that take players away from everyone else in the transfer market. So I think it's going to be a really, really intriguing game. I think, as I said in my league table prediction video, even though it's the first game of the season, I think it's a must-win for Chelsea. They cannot afford to slip behind the chasing pack, as it were, already. I think they have to be on top if they're going to compete for anything this season. But from what I've seen in pre-season from both Chelsea and from Liverpool, both teams seem very good going forward and both teams seem very dodgy at the back. So I'm going to go for a 3-3 draw. I think this is going to be an incredible game. I think it could be absolute chaos. I really think either team could win it by a heavy margin, but I also think it could be a game like this where it's just end-to-end goals flying in left, right and centre, and I really can't separate them, so I'm going to go for a 3-3 draw. And finally, the Monday Night Football sees my club, Manchester United, taking on Wolves, one side that has really built up well over the course of the summer, brought in key players in key positions and is really looking to build towards the future, and one team that has literally got rid of their manager 2 days before the start of the season, have pretty much signed no one, have let 2 or 3 of their best players leave, and have brought in Gary O'Neill, who granted did a fantastic job at Bournemouth last season. I just hope he's not had enough time to get Wolves settled before this game, because realistically Manchester United should be winning this one pretty comfortably. And I'm going to let my bias get the better of me. I'm going to go for 4-0 to Manchester United, which will see Manchester United top the table at the end of game week 1, which is exactly what I want. But I also don't think it's completely unrealistic, unless, of course, the likes of Arsenal or City do really go on a tear-up in their opening game and just outscore Manchester United. But either way, I expect Manchester United to win this game very comfortably. And that'll be it for the opening game week of the season. Thank you very much for watching, as always. Let me know all your thoughts down in the comments. Future videos won't be as long as this. It's just I thought I'd get a proper set of predictions out for you for the opening game week of the season. Thank you very much for watching once again. I will see you very, very soon.